Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AFL Fantasy Fanatics GameDay Squad preview show ahead of round 16. I'm your host, Bales, and you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials. And joining me, as always, is my co-host and fellow GameDay Squad fanatic. I hope you guys like what I did there. It is a good friend, Tom from GDS. Tom, mate, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good as always. Ready to get stuck in. Had a pretty good round last round. Sort of starting to finally turn the table with some of my decisions, but some huge buys this week. So I think probably more important than ever to sort of nail some of these players you're going to be bringing in for some of the top tier players we will have to sit. So as always, Bales, excited to rip in and talk fantasy footy with you.
Yep, exactly, mate. Now, looking forward to it. Yes, as you say, the final buy round, but this feels like it's affecting a lot of these high-end players. I don't know about you, but we'll go through our squads after. But when I was looking for defenders this week, I was having to scroll down a little bit further than what I've had to. I've normally just been able to go lock in Lockie Whitfield, lock in Lockie Ash, put in Nick Martin, Max Holmes, all on buy, all of them on buy. So,
all on a buy.
Zorko, the other one, I knew I forgot one of them. But yeah, so many guys that we can't pick this week that we normally do. So looking forward to chatting through all that. But just, I guess we'll do a bit of a quick sort of recap of how you went last week in terms of obviously, did you get through? Obviously, the Game Day Squad Classic Cup started off last week. Did you get through the second round? Then where are you sort of ranked across the comps that you're taking more seriously?
Yeah, well, if I didn't make it through, it'd be pretty much a pretty big stitch up. I came 8th last week in Classic, so I actually had a really good round. Pretty red hot. Couple of things didn't sort of go my way. I started a gold Ed Richards and a gold Bailey Dale in that last game for the Doggies. Just didn't hit that ceiling score that I would have liked to see. I also played a gold Brayshaw, so a lot of the salary cap that I allocated in Classic was a little misspent and sort of cost me from doing extremely well, although I can't really complain, mate. I finished 8th. I had a fantastic round, nonetheless. But of course, there's always little critiques that you have for yourself in hindsight. So very good in the Classic. For the seasonal comp now, in that, I'm now 23rd. So I've come from like 45th at the start of the year all the way to 23rd. So I'm definitely trending in the correct direction. I'm also competing in the contender. I'm currently sitting 8th for the season, and I came 35th for the round. And I actually am sort of playing those two at the moment. They're sort of my favorite ones. I really like the strategy of having to not use too many of the high-end cards, and you sort of just have to pick which golds and which silvers you're going to put in. So I might throw it back to you, mate. How's your season looking so far?
Yeah, I like the point you made with the Contender and Classic, because they're the two that I'm probably in sort of taking more seriously at the moment, just because with Starter, I don't have enough bronzes to have I guess 3 of each of the players.
Yeah.
So I find it harder, and with Starter, because you've got to essentially come first for the season to get the prize card or a really good prize. I just think, well, I'll just have a bit of fun in that, play some pods that I don't normally play, and take the other ones more seriously. But in terms of the others, with Classic last week, end up coming 22nd. There, and then in Contender ended up finishing 7th for the round, which I was really, really happy with. That gold Luke Jackson I played in there was very, very handy meaning that I end up finishing pretty high for the round. But in Classic, 17th overall for the season, so we're pretty close together in that. And then in Contender, I'm 16th, but it's pretty close together. Like I'm not even 200 points away from first. Like, it's really tight. Like, I'm only about 70 points behind you, and you're 8th, I'm 16th. So it's quite close. Obviously, it's only been a few rounds for Contender. The real thing that cost me last week, particularly in Classic, was I had a platinum Lockie Whitfield in my squad, and unfortunately went down injured with concussion the first quarter. The week before, I had platinum Charlie Curnow. So the last 2 weeks, I've been really stitched up with putting salary cap on players that have been ruled out within the first half of their game. So that sucks. I wish it wasn't like that, but hopefully the guys I'll put the salary on this week can go really well. But we're still in the Classic Cup, which is good. Still trying to get top 10 in Classic. That'd be nice. Obviously, it's a I think prize cards is top 10, I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm hoping to finish top 10 and get one of those. So, yeah, but we'll get stuck into it. So actually, Max Hansen, before we get started into the games, has said, I matched up against Monco's Minions in the Classic Cup. He's number 1 ranked for the entire season in Classic. So talk about stitch up. He's ranked against the number 1. So Max, I know you've tuned in a fair bit to the channel, not just for the GameDay Squad videos, but all the others. But good luck, mate. I hope you go well.
Mate,
and then
he's not only first in Classic, he's also first in Champion. This is a force to be reckoned with in GameDay Squad. But there's nothing better than an underdog story. And one round can be the difference. You just need to beat them once. You don't need to do it over a season. So, Max, I know Bales will wish you the absolute best of luck, because if you can do it, mate, that'll be one.
Go down the GameDay Squad Cup competition folklore if you can get the job done.
Exactly,
so hopefully
right.
You can get it done. And Jason Welch is also saying, hi, love these vids. Thank you, mate. Very much appreciated. It's been a little bit stop-start just with some commitments, or I've jumped on over on the GameDay Squad channel to do the preview show over there. But, we do enjoy getting these done on the Wednesday night. If you guys got any GameDay Squad questions, feel free to chuck them in the comments. And when we get to that game or particular player, if you're tossing out a couple of players, we're more than happy to chat through and answer some questions. But keep it GameDay Squad related. We can answer all the AFL Fantasy ones on Friday. But let's get stuck into the game, shall we? So we'll start off with tomorrow night, which is Port Adelaide and Carlton. And you feel like this is a crunch game for both teams, under a fair bit of pressure. Who knows what is going to happen 12th versus 10th. But the teams for tomorrow night, so both teams have actually made the 4 changes. So Port Adelaide have brought in Alia, Logan Evans, Hugh Jackson, and Travis Boak. And then Jackson Mead, Jeremy Finlayson, Ryan Burton, and Christian Rice have all been dropped. And then Carlton also swung the axe. They've brought in Jordan Boyd, Lewis Young, and debutantes Billy Wilson and Flynn Young. So good to see how they go. Flynn Young was picked up in the mid-season draft not even a month ago, and he's already getting a game. So hopefully he goes well. Then the outs is Croy Durden has been dropped. Pitney's also been dropped, along with Jackson Binns and Matt Carroll. So a few changes for the Blues. But as we always do, we'll go through the players that we are keen on, not so keen on this game. We'll go through one each. And Tom, we'll start off with you. Who are you keen or not so keen on in this game?
I'm going to say keen on, mate. I'm going to talk about Tom De Koning. Port Adelaide have been one of the best ruck matchups. They are running the dual rucks with Vicentini and Sweet, but they've been doing this the past couple of rounds, and it hasn't really mattered. They're just a little bit weak in the position. You can call it almost a liability at this point, especially in terms of fantasy and accumulating stats. So TDK is one of the best rucks. He actually was pretty good against the Big X last round, which is one of the tougher matchups in all of fantasy. He sort of minimized his role and got 82 fantasy points himself, which surprisingly was actually a better performance than when they met earlier this year. So a little bit of growth, I guess you can call it. But I'm expecting him, coming off a pretty, poor performance by his standards, to bounce back here in a big way. You can expect a lot of disposals from him and winning a lot of hitouts as well against Port. So, I think he's got some really good upside, and it's going to be a safe play for the round, hence why he'll be my start for this game.
Yeah, and I think the good point you make there as well is Pitney up against Port Adelaide, but that's also with no Mark Pitney, who's been dropped as well. So he's solo ruck, and we know that Tom De Koning can put up some big scores when he is solo ruck. So I do like that play. He wasn't originally in my squad, which we'll go through after, but the fact that he's now been named solo, he's definitely in contention there. But I don't know if you've noticed, rucks this round are actually really, really hard to pick. There's so many options. You've got Tom De Koning's a great option now that he's now solo ruck. You've got Darcy Cameron against the Eagles. You've got Ryan Marshall against Freo. Thankfully, Luke Jackson's in our forward line, so we can play him there. But then there's also, if you want to go for the number 1 ruck this year, Max Gawn. He's got a tough matchup, but people still go there because it is Max Gawn. Tristan Cherry's got a good matchup. Tim English and Brody Grundy, the 2 in-form rucks, are going head-to-head against each other on Friday night, which we'll get to in the next game. So there is so many rucks, and I've actually found it really tough to pick the 2 that I want to settle on. So we'll touch on that a little bit later as well.
Sure.
I'm going to go not so keen on. And it's not that I'm not keen on these individual players, because I'll just put the 2 in the 1. It's just I don't know where the tag's going to go. And I'm going to put Zach Butters and Connor Rosie in the same boat, because Alex Chincotta, I know that he's been tagged in the past couple of weeks, he will go to one of these two. And in Game Day Squad, obviously, it's because of weekly comp, I don't want to sort of hedge my bets and go, I'm going to go for Rosie because I think go to Butters or whatever, because he might go to Rosie and then not and leave Butters alone. So I'm actually fading both this week just because I don't want to have a player get tagged and put up a poor score. I don't know if either of them are going to go like a 130, 140 scoring Game Day Squad to, I guess, make it sort of painful to watch like they might do. They're both capable of it. But I just think I want to go for players that won't get tagged, because we've seen Tom this year, midfielders get tagged, have like poor scores, and you leave them out. And even if they even like a Nick Dacos, he only got to like a 115, 120 score last when that was with a Windhager tag. I don't want a guy just getting a lower score. I want these ceiling scores, and the best chance of that is targeting these good matchups and games where the player won't get tagged. So that's where I'm currently sitting. But if we hear pre-game, he's definitely going to Zach Butters, then Connor Rosie's firmly back in terms of what I'm looking at doing my squad. If he's going to Rosie, then Butters is going to be someone I'll consider. So one to watch leading into the next game. Moving over to Friday night, and it's your Swans up against the Doggies and the Swans. After a good win last week, a few people are starting to jump back on board with the Swans, and they might be able to do a bit of damage in the back half of the year. But who are you keen on or not so keen on in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to say not so keen on. I think I started Errol Gordon a little too early. I'm going to be honest with you. I think we need to just allow him to come back. I only see this as a short-term thing. Look, he's just, I think in terms of match fitness and getting his legs back and playing a game, I sort of discussed generally that I had a little bit of concern because last year he was so effective because he played so much time on ground. And when you're playing that time on ground and the role that he's playing, then you're going to output some really good scores. He wasn't far off, though. The thing is, he had 17 kicks. So the signs of him being a very good fantasy player are here. And we can see them already in his first game back off a very significant injury. So I think when others might see that and look at the positives, I'm probably going to be a little more hesitant. I'm going to fade Errol Gordon for now. And I'm going to just keep watching him. And once I sort of feel a little more confident in how he's playing and his fitness, then I think it's time to then be a little more aggressive and get him back in the squad.
Yeah. Oh, I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised. We'll go through our squad depth, but he's currently sitting there for me. I was actually impressed with the fact that he had 0 marks, which that's not Errol. We know Errol gets these +6s on the wing and around the ground. I think that was the feeling out game. It wasn't a hugely scoring game from fantasy. Only a few players went over the ton. But I actually think that Errol, I'm actually looking at playing him this week. I think against the Dogs under the roof. Not under the roof, at SCG. Sorry, SCG this week.
The G.
SCG, I do think that, a few extra of those +7s. And Tom will go with 74%. I think that this will start to increase. We'll go 80, 85, and then sort of go back to those high 80s, low 90s. In terms of game time percentage. So I'm actually fairly keen on Errol this week just because we do have a few guys on the bye. This is actually a huge game. I've got a heap of players from this game currently in my game day squad. Like I could say I'm keen on a Bond or I'm keen on a Matt Kennedy or something like that, but I feel like they're a bit obvious. So I'm going to go someone a little bit different than I'm a bit keen on this week. And I think it's a little bit to do with the fact that there's a lot of guys on that bye in defense. I've found it really tricky when you've got a few, like if you look at the guys on bye in defense in terms of the highest averaging players, the guys on bye you've got here. I'm just getting up the players here. So you got Dane Zorko's on bye, and he is the second highest averaging defender. You've got Lockie Ash who's on bye. You got Nick Martin who's on bye. Lockie Whitfield on bye. Max Holmes on bye. Like there's all those guys, more often than not, they're locked into our squads pretty much weekly. So the fact that there's There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 guys there, 5 guys that are on bye amongst the top 6 to 8 is pretty big. So I'm keen this week on starting Callum Mills in my defense. I think that the role people know in fantasy, I wasn't as keen on it last week, but thinking about it more now, his time on ground's up. He's normally been maybe mid-70s to low 80s% game time type player. He played mid-80s and then he played 90% game time on the weekend. And I think it's a sign of things to come if he's going to stay in this role. He's not playing that last line of defense guy that would save the game under John Longmire. He looks to be almost like the quarterback, the general back there. So he's getting these +7s in game day squad. He's getting some kick-ins. He's getting used on the switches. He's going at the back of storage. So it's a great role. And I think that this can, the fruits of the labor of that can come through in game day squad. And I think he can score quite well. So I'm keen on him. And he might be a guy that will be used a bit frequently in the run home, particularly in some good matchups. And I think the Dogs, albeit they're not an amazing matchup, I think with the lack of defenders that are playing this week, I think Callum Mills is a decent play, and I'm playing him this week. Moving over to the Saturday games. And actually, no, before we do, I want to get your quick thoughts on Callum Mills because you're the Sydney Swans, man. What do you think about Mills at play?
I love it. I'm also starting him. So he's in my top 7 for the round. Back-to-back rounds over the ton for game day scored 127, 112. And I just agree with you. Like, under Longmire, it was almost like a fantasy trap to play him when he was going back in defense because you thought, oh, he'll get all these extra kick-ins and he'll do all of this. But he just literally played as like that full back. He was locked down. He wasn't really being utilized for his skill set, where now we're seeing that open up a little bit. Like, he's getting his hands on the footy a lot more. He's taking a lot of marks. He's averaging since back, 7 marks a game just about. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. That's an indication of what we're going to see moving forward. So especially in a round, as you mentioned, where it's weak, I think it's 100% one of the better plays you can make. But yeah, he'll be pushing for a spot for the majority of the season if he keeps this up. That's for sure.
Yeah, and he only had the 1 tackle last week, and I think that he's a guy we know can tackle. I know defense doesn't have as many tackles as in the midfield, but I think he can get 4 or 5 a game maybe and sort of bump that scoring up. So I really like the play.
Even further, yeah.
People know I wasn't keen on it, but at the end of the day, we can sort of admit we were initially wrong. We can come full circle and say we're on board eventually. So I'm on board with Callum Mills as of now.
Well done,
moving
guys.
to the Saturday games, and we'll go to Gold Coast and Melbourne. Who are you keen on or not so keen on in this game?
Yeah, look, I reckon there's a couple players that people are going to be targeting in this one. I'm going to talk about someone that I haven't spoken about in a while, but was pretty big on earlier this year. I think another defender that you should consider taking a flyer on this round is John Noble.
Oh,
He
okay.
had a
I thought you
stretch
were
of
going to
the
go the
season.
other. I thought you were going to go to another defender. You got me here. So keen on John Noble.
Yes, I am. Look, Melbourne has been one of the better matchups for sort of those mid defenders, people that push up the ground. John Noble will have that license to push up the ground. He will also be taking majority of the kick-ins. And, Melbourne's track record over the past couple of weeks is going to indicate there could be a lot of kick-ins in this game. And if that's the case, then there's going to be a lot more opportunity for John Noble to score because he will be taking bulk of those. He's excellent at playing on. He definitely starts himself in fantasy, that's for sure. So, with all those things being said, he's coming off 89, 54, which those conditions in the last game in particular were really bad for him. It was a sloppy game. It was wet. He wasn't able to sort of get it going, or at least for one of those games from memory. But he's cracked the ton a lot this season. He has that really good role, and I just feel like this is going to be one of the games where he bounces back. But if you look at his more recent form, you're probably not going to want to go there. So I guess I'll go against the grain. People maybe have lost their faith in John Noble. I'm going to double down at this round in particular and start him, and hoping he goes very, very well.
Yeah, I like it. I do like the play. I thought actually going to say Jack Bowie, who I actually think just quietly as well as another solid option in a good matchup. So, I do like the John Noble shout, and he's currently sitting in my defense as well. So we're thinking along the same lines there.
Oh, a lot.
I'm going to say a player that I'm not so keen on in this game, and I feel it feels awful saying this, but with the rucks the way they are this week, I'm not so keen on starting Max Gawn this week.
That's huge. That's a massive call, and I love it.
He's up against Jared Witts, and these are the sorts of plays you got to make in game day squad to be successful week on week. It's not always going to work, right? But you're looking at a guy here averaging 130.9 points. If you're getting 120 points a game from a player in game day squad, you're like, that's great. Tick, fantastic. The forwards, we're not even looking for that. We're looking for maybe 100, 105. But when it comes to rucks this week, there are so many guys I like this week that I mentioned before about playing. So like Tim English, I like playing. Darcy Cameron, Ryan Marshall, Tristan Sherry, Brodie Grundy, Tom De Koning, Like they've all got really good matchups, and I like
I
playing
hear.
pretty much all of them. So that's why I don't like playing Gorn this week, which it feels awful because I think he's still going to have a decent enough score. I just think the other guys have got the ability to put up a ceiling score. If this was at the G, I'd be a little bit more nervous because we know Big Gorn, he loves playing at the G. But being up people's first, yeah, it feels awful. Fading a guy that's averaging 131 points essentially per game in GameDay Squad. But I'm currently doing it at the moment. He's not currently in my squad. I know he's not in yours either, which is it's a bit spicy from us too. But I guess we will see. I thought I'd say it now. We're talking about Gorny here, so
yeah, valid.
but yeah, very, very interesting. We also, Corey Bladge putting a comment here as well saying, can't wait to keep winning in Classic Cup, still going. So congrats, mate. Hopefully you can keep going through and keep winning some games, hopefully along with myself and Tom. I haven't even looked at who I'm up against this week, but I'm sure I'll be able to look at that at some point. Moving over to the next game, which is a twilight game on the Saturday, which is Hawthorn and North Melbourne at UTAS Stadium. And who are you keen on or not so keen on here?
Going to keep it positive. Going to keep it positive for sure. I'm actually was going to say someone, but look, I've done back-to-back defenders. Let's go away from the defense. I don't want to talk about them all afternoon, although I could because I feel like it's pretty important. I'm actually going to go forward. I'm going to talk about Caleb Daniel. He's had a great year. He's averaging 104 fantasy points, but he's sort of missed the window of those really big performances. I think a little earlier in the year, we were talking about, okay, this guy's going to be a lock. But then as the year sort of went on, Simpkin came into the conversation, and then Parker was like, oh, he's playing some really good footy as well. Which Kangas forward should you be starting? But look, the Hawthorn midfield is pretty tight, and they're going to nullify a lot of the good play that we'll see from someone like Simpkin and also with our old boy from the Swannies. But Caleb Daniel's going to get a good chance to score, in my opinion. He is sharing a little bit with Sheasel. Sheasel's sort of come back and he's getting a lot more disposals, but Sheasel is playing a little higher up the ground. He's been given that license to run where Daniels is just really solid. I don't think we're going to see a massive score from him. So if that's what you're looking for, maybe avoid this. But I think he's a real safe play. And if you just want around that 100 points mark and can potentially go a little over, then I think he's perfect as sort of like your seventh option as a forward, which is exactly where I have him right now. So Caleb Daniel is a start for me, just as a bit of security.
Yeah, I like it. I like the play. So you had the two scores in rounds 2 and 3 where he went 140 and 137. Outside of those 2 weeks, he hasn't actually gone over 120, but he's only had the one score below 90, which was that game down in Tassie against Brisbane where he scored 69 GameDay Squad points. So as you say, if you want that score between 90 and 110, you go Caleb down. You get those kick-ins, you get those 4 points. He takes at least 5 to 8 a game, which is a pretty good floor in GameDay Squad. So you like that. I'm actually going with another defender here because obviously with all defenders here, and I know looking at your squad, you didn't have him. And I don't think a lot of people are going to have him because I think he's a rare commodity on the transfer market. But I'm going for a little bit of a pod here. Colby McKercher is who I'm pretty keen on playing this week. So he's had 3 scores in a row over 110, 113, 110, 125 in GameDay Squad. Playing off halfback again, taking kick-ins, not getting a huge amount of marks, but he kicks the ball every time he gets the ball pretty much. So the last 2 games he had 20 kicks, 15 handballs in that first week, but he's gone 24 kicks, 3 handballs, 20 kicks, 9 handballs. So loves kicking the ball, which is obviously even better in GameDay Squad. So I think he's actually going to be a pod this week. It's going to be quite useful, and I'm pretty keen on starting him for that reason, hoping that he can take a few extra marks and end up going well. Yeah. Hawthorn's not a great matchup, but we talked about defense this week. A few guys out. I'm pretty keen on playing Colby back in my defense. Moving to the Collingwood and West Coast game, who are you keen on or not so keen on here? Because I think we might be starting a few pies in our squads this week.
Yeah. I actually haven't overindulged in pies, let's say. I've got 2, and I feel like we're probably going to have the same 2. So I'll talk about one. Maybe you talk about the other or another pie you've got in there. But Darcy Cameron's going to come into my squad. Hasn't been too many points this season where I've started Darcy Cameron, and maybe a little bit to my detriment, in all honesty, for the season. But he went up against Rowan Marshall last week and had 152 fantasy points. Now, he kicked 2 goals, and he's not known as a goal kicker as a ruck. So you can probably rule out the possibility of that happening, but it's everything else that he did that was fantastic. Yeah,
against
8
West
marks.
Coast, against West Coast, I could see him kicking a couple.
Maybe he can jag one, but I wouldn't be locking him in for 2, or at least
Don't put him in your
trying
multi.
to lock him in for. Yeah. Like, I think there's just other ways that he's going to score in this game, and it's going to be through his disposals, which is we've seen a bit of an uptick in over the past couple of weeks. Marks, which we've seen a big uptick in, especially the past 2 weeks with 9 and 8 respectively, and his hitouts. He knows how to win a hit out. He went up against a really good ruck last round and won 28 of them. So against West Coast, where we could see that number increase even further, I'm loving what he's going to bring to my squad this week, and he's definitely a start. So start with confidence. He's one of the rucks you should lock in.
Yep. I'm really keen on starting him there as well. I'm not going to go for the low-hanging fruit here, right? Just Nick Dacos, start him. Start him. Simple as that. Just put him in your squad, and that's it. I'm going to talk about his brother, because I'm keen on playing him. He's not currently in my squad, but I like Josh Dacos this week as a pod in the midfield. So across the other formats in fantasy, he's got defender status, but obviously in GameDay Squad, he's just a midfielder because he played wing last year. But playing this halfback role, I really do like the role that he is playing at the moment. And if it wasn't for Ryan Burns going to him in the second half last week, he would have gone even bigger than what he did last week. So he's still turned up, which is good. I'm just trying to find. So here you go. So his score last week. So I've only got one silver Josh Dacos in my entire club. No bronzes, no golds, no nothing. Scored a 124 last week. I think that would have been a 140, 150 if it wasn't for that bit of attention after. But he went 155 before that, 114, 120. Couple of lower scores in this 98 and 83, but then 125, 143, 115. So he's been in some really good form, has Josh Dacos. And we've been seeing that shift this year in terms of players we want in our fantasy teams and our game day squads, is that we want these halfback guys. They're the ones that aren't getting tagged. They're the ones that are dominating week after week. Like, look at one of our favorite players, Nasai Wanganeen-Milera, just every week. We love seeing what he does.
So
and you've got all these guys doing all this good stuff. And Josh Dacos is someone I think that we need to probably look a little bit more at in the midfield, maybe week to week, especially with a good matchup. And I think West Coast, they aren't a great matchup for defenders, but it's more when they're at Optus. When they're away from home, it's a little bit better. Under the roof, I could see Josh Dacos junking it up late in the second half and getting to a really good score. So I do like him. Not currently in my squad, but I'm trying to find space to put him in. So he might be able to fit in there before the start of the round. Moving over to the final 2 Sunday games, and we'll go through our squads and our locks and fades of the week. So the first game on the Sunday, Richmond take on the Crows at the MCG. Felt weird last week not seeing the Crows at all, so it'd be good to watch a Crows game on the weekend. Who are you keen on or not so keen on in this game?
Yes, your boys. I had a bit of a tough, Dawson's for me is a lock, so I won't talk about Dawson. He's our boy, but he's your boy now. He's at the Crows. I was trying to pick between 2 Crows forwards, and they were Isaac Rankin and Riley Thilthorpe. Both of them have had fantastic years. I looked at this matchup and thought, who do I think is going to outperform the other, and who should I be starting? I came to the decision that Isaac Rankin has a little more upside for me. Tigers are a little weak in the midfield. I know Rankin's been getting less time sort of through the midfield, but I'm not too concerned about that because of how damaging he can be forward as well. This is one of those games where I think Rankin could kick multiple goals, and he hasn't done that since round 9, which to me says, and the one side of it saying, well, you shouldn't be too confident that he will do that. He's not doing it. But the other side is that he's probably due for a pretty big game, especially in terms of goal kicking pretty soon. He's too classy and too elite of a player to be held down for too long. So I'm thinking upside because of goal kicking. I think he's going to get a chance to get 20-plus disposals as well, and most of those are normally off his boot because he loves to kick. So thinking it's time to start him with some confidence. These past 3 games, he hasn't cracked the ton, but I feel this game will break that trend and he'll be back well in the ton range. So, get him in.
I like it. And I'm glad that you talked about one of the forwards and mentioned the other one, because I'm also keen on Rankin, but I'm also keen on Riley Thilthorpe this week. Because, again, a bit like Nick Dacos, I could have said Jordan Dawson, but he's number one scorer in GameDay Squad for midfielders. Just start him. Simple as that against Richmond. But yeah, Riley Thilthorpe. I like playing this week. And this is why. So looking at his games, so he started off the season pretty strongly. So his first, 4 games, he went 98, 110, 116, 126 in GameDay Squad. Then he had a 4-week stretch where he went 78, 76, 77, and then scored a 50 against Carlton, where he had Jacob Wiedering. And that's one of the toughest matchups going around for a key forward, right? Jacob Wiedering, one of the best defenders in the comp. Since then, though, been a little bit up and down, but I think there's reasons behind why some of his scores have been down. So the week after, he ended up going 112 in round 9. Then round 10, he scored an 87, which that was against Collingwood in the wet.
Yeah.
You can see why he scored a little bit lower there, but 87 is not a bad score. Then he scored 130, then a 103 against Sydney when he got subbed out early at 3/4 time. So 103 in 3/4 is pretty bloody good. Then he went 74 against Brisbane in the wet again, and then 70 against Hawthorn, essentially in the wet, because it wasn't raining, but it was dewy, it was cold, not a key forwards night. So really, his 3 scores for a while have been because it's been wet or bad conditions, which was the Collingwood, Brisbane, and Hawthorn games. Other than that, going along nicely. I think the game against Richmond is a good matchup. But the one thing I would say is make sure you checking the weather and making sure that it's not wet. I haven't checked the weather forecast for Melbourne. Maybe, Tom, if you want to quickly do that while I'm chatting now. But that would be the one thing I'll be looking at with key forwards. You don't want it to be wet. But if it's not, if it's dry conditions and expect to be good, I do like playing Riley Thilthorpe in my game day squad this week because Richmond matchup, I think he's going to be able to get a few goals. Corey just said no rain, and then I'm assuming that concurs with you there, Tom.
Yeah, but you know what Melbourne's like, mate. So we'll see how that ages as the week goes on.
Yeah,
but as of now, yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah, so that's good. So he's currently sitting there in my game day squad for round 16. And we will move to the final game of the round, which is Freo and St Kilda at Optus Stadium. Few fantasy relevant players here. Who are you keen on from this one?
Yeah, let's go with Jack Sinclair. Coming off 81 fantasy points last round, but Fremantle play the highest pace game in the competition currently. So that just tells me the ball's going to be back there a ton. So there's real good reason to start Wanganeen Miller because he's a freak. It's absolutely just a go. And also Jack Sinclair, in my opinion. I wouldn't be too nervous. Look, defenders are pretty thin, so I don't think this is going to be out of the realms of too many people's options for the round, but I will say I wouldn't be too nervous about it. His form before that was impeccable if you look at Jack Sinclair and how he's been playing. So the role's there. I just think it's a bad week. It's an off round, but the opportunity to score big will be back with this matchup against Freo, and it's going to end the round. So I don't mind having a couple players in the last game because you sort of get to come home strong with the sails up and the wind behind you. And Jack Sinclair will be part of that for me this round.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I like it. And a few people be nervous about that score for him last week, but I think it's fine. I think he had a poor game. I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know if you watched that game, Tom, but watching that game, he looked like he was sick or something was not right because he didn't look interested, which is not Sinclair. We know that he loves running by for a sort of handball receive or going for a little +7 and getting those little cheap kicks around the ground, but he wasn't doing that. Even when it came to kick-ins, Nasai pretty much took all the kick-ins when he's around, whereas we know Sinclair sometimes goes, no, I'll take it. I'll kick to you so we can both get some points for our owners. So that didn't happen.
They say that.
Yeah, exactly. So that didn't happen last week. I think that there was something up, and I think he'll respond well this week. So I do like him. I'm going to go for, again, it's been a theme this week. I'm trying to highlight some of these defenders that people can go with this week. And we've got a lot of, again, this is another very, very fantasy relevant game and a lot of players to choose from, particularly in defense. And I'm going to go here again, and I'm going to go for Jordan Clark as someone that I'm keen to play in this one here. So obviously they come up against St Kilda, which we know is a great matchup for defenders. And he's been some good form. Last 3 weeks, he's gone 146, 119, and then a season high, almost season high. So he went 162 in round 9, but he went to 160 in that last game. So knows when to sort of get in on a really good matchup there. And they obviously played earlier in the year with St Kilda winning by 61 points. I don't expect that to happen again. And he did struggle in this one here. Only scored 61 fantasy points. What round did I say this was? Round 8. What did he score in round 8 in GameDay Squad? He only scored a 72, right? So not a great score. I think he goes a lot better here. Freo playing a lot better than that was their worst game. And pretty much since then, they've actually been pretty good. So I do like Jordan Clark this week, and I think he can take advantage of the good matchup. Jack's got a couple of questions for us here. So he's asking about Luke Ryan, Jordan Clark, interested in either of them, and then what about Caleb Daniel? So yes, Tom mentioned before he's pretty keen on Caleb Daniel. If you want that guy that could just give you a solid 90 to 105 score, and I agree, I'm pretty keen on him, and I'm pretty keen on Jordan Clark, as just mentioned before. But what about Luke Ryan, Tom? He's been literally very up and down, but we know in a good matchup he can take advantage. Do you think he's someone that you could go to this week?
Yeah, look, he's coming off a pretty good stretch himself. I probably wouldn't play both of the Freo defenders, and I'll get into it a little later, but Jordan Clark's actually my start of the round. I think he could seriously finish this round as one of the best performing players. You spoke about round 8 in particular, but since then, they've had a massive sort of shift in terms of how they want to play, how aggressive they want to be, and who they're getting the ball, or whose hands they're getting the ball in. So Jordan Clark has been a big part of that. Ryan's trying to find him again. The entire team is using him on the handball receive. They're using him through the middle. Every time they see that he's open, they're essentially hitting that target because they're trusting his boot over anyone else sort of coming through the middle. So for those reasons, because I am so high on Clark, I'm probably a little less likely to start Luke Ryan. And I just see a little bit more upside with some other players. Like we spoke about Bowie before. He's not even my 7. Probably give the nod to him over Luke Ryan at the moment. But Jordan Clark, get in. And yeah, you know about Caleb Daniel. But would you play Ryan? I haven't seen your squad, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I don't want to play both. So I've got Jordan Clark in there. I do have Luke Ryan in my. I believe I've got him in my contender side because I've only got the one Jordan Clark bronze, so he's there. But if I opted to go for a gold Jordan Clark in my classic side, then that bronze would move to my contender team, which means I'd have a Luke Ryan in starter. So I've got Luke Ryan in a squad this week. Just to see what he can do. But in my main squads, I've got Jordan Clark over Luke Ryan this week. And he's also asking about Bowie, Grundy, and Luke Parker. So we did touch on Grundy. I think he is a decent option there. In the rucks, there's a lot of rucks you can play this week. I think Grundy against English is potentially a good matchup there. And Jake Bowie also mentioned as well in that Gold Coast game, saying that he is a defender that you can definitely look at this week in a good matchup. What about Luke Parker? Against Hawthorn, Luke Parker's been, again, he's been a little bit like Caleb Daniel in a way. Like, hasn't put up many of those massive scores, but he's been fairly consistent. Like he had a 58 and a 46 in rounds 11 and 10 respectively. But around that, he's gone a lot of 90s and there is only 2 scores below 80. And particularly his last 3, he's gone 114, 110, 119. Is he someone that you could look at starting your forward line?
Yeah, probably just the matchup for me. I don't love Hawthorn and how that midfield plays. They're pretty good, and they're about the middle of the pack in terms of points against for this season so far. They've had some pretty tough games as well. They've gone up against some of the better midfielders in the comp. So if they're sort of holding that sort of level so far this year, I'm a little concerned about the upside that Parker has. Like, he's going to play through the middle. You know he's going to get CBAs, and he's a workhorse. He'll run the game out. He won't give up, irrespective of the score. But I'm a little more hesitant. And last week in particular, or the past couple of weeks, he's been goal kicking. And I think that goal kicking, he's got 4 goals over his past 3 games. I don't see that being a theme for this game in particular. And he's getting around that 110. He got 110 in both of the games. He had 2 goals in. Without those goals, we're talking about 90s. And I'm probably just a little more confident that Daniels will get to the 100 or around that mark than Parker will this round in particular. So,
yeah, I like it. I'll probably lit slightly higher on Parker just because I think the Hawthorn matchup, I think they're going to want a more experienced guy in the midfield a bit more. So Parker's there, but I just think there are midfielders, forwards this week that have got a little bit more upside that I'm going to. So he's currently not in my squads, but he was someone I did look at for a little bit there, but thought against that. He is in my starter squad though, because I've run out of bronze forwards because I'm not really putting many salary on any of the forwards this week. We'll go into our lock of the week, then our fade of the week, then we'll show our squads and then wrap up. So who is your, well, you mentioned a little bit of your lock of the week, but who is your lock of the week for those that missed it?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jordan Clark. His role is fantastic. You just have a look at the past couple of weeks. He had 23 kicks and 10 handballs last week, 19 and 7 the week before, 24 and 6 the week prior, and it's the marks as well. He's pretty much, over the past couple of weeks, we've seen 6, 6, 6, 5, and 8. Shouldn't say those three numbers, actually. That's bad. Very bad luck for my round. Goodness. But look, it's just the indication of he's working hard around the ground. He's getting the ball in his hands. And as I mentioned, you just look at how the players are reacting to him when he's in the middle and when he's in those sort of soft spots in the zone, and they're willing to pull the kick. When it's Jordan Clark, they're willing to take the game on. They're willing to take the risk through the middle or wherever it is on the ground. And that's because it's definitely a game plan thing. So I'm loving it. If they're going to want to feed it through him, then by all means, let's get him in the squad. If it was higher than starter that I'm talking about, I'd probably put some salary cap on him as well. But in my starter, getting his bronze in there, pretty confident with the round that he'll have.
Yep.
Who's your lock?
I like it. I like it. Funny enough, I mentioned your lock of the week, and you mentioned my lock of the week during when we chatted about this game. But my lock of the week is Darcy Cameron. Again, I could go for a Nick Dacos or a Jordan Dawson or Nasai Nima, but I guess we try and make this segment here. We try and give out some different names that we're really keen on that are in our squads. And Darcy Cameron is someone that is really probably disrespected too much. Probably not in the fantasy, in the actual AFL world, because he's up there in the All-Australian conversation. There's like sort of probably a few, and he's right up there. But in fantasy, just because we've got Max Gawn, we've got Tristan Sherry, Tim English, Brodie Grundy, Rowan Marshall, you name it, Darcy Cameron's the one that's normally forgotten about. But he's averaging 120 game day squad points a game, scored 152 last week, and comes up against West Coast, who are the number one matchup for rucks for the season. I know Port Adelaide are right up there as well, but I believe that West Coast are still number one. I may be wrong. I probably am wrong that I've said that. But West Coast are still a very good matchup regardless for defenders. I'm actually just finding it up here if they're number one to make sure that I wasn't just talking out of my rear end and that I was actually sort of on point there. Yes, West Coast are still number one matchup. Yes, and Richmond are next best. So for the season, West Coast are the easiest, and I expect Darcy Cameron to cash in with a good score. Fade of the round, who are you giving this to?
Oh, I feel like you've got to make it a little spicy. I guess mine will have to be Max Gawn, but not because I want to fade him, right? But it's more the fact that I'm just really liking your lock of the round. I'm loving. I think he's going to be one of the better players. And TDK tomorrow night, I think he's going to play awesome. I think he's going to be really good. You spoke about Witts before. He is very good at defending the ruck fantasy points and trying to nullify. I guess the one exception to that rule all year has been Max Gawn. So it's a little scary to say this, but if you got one of the top 3 performing players in the competition and you don't have him in your squad, I guess that has to sort of qualify as my fade of the round. Now, I don't say this with, a lot in my chest. I'm a little nervous of not playing Max Gawn because of how good he is, but I'm going to trust the gut. I'm going to trust some of the numbers, and I just think the 2 rucks that I have in will outperform him, hence why I'm going to fade him for this week.
Yeah. I do agree with you there, but yes, it does feel nervous fading someone, as we said before, that's averaging 131. And I'm equally, my fade of the week is someone that has been in very, very good form. So over his last 5 games, I'll tell you some of these scores that this guy's put up.
I want to guess as well after, so go.
125, 115, 132, and then the last 2 has gone 170 and 169. That is the player that I'm fading.
That's the last 2.
Yeah, the last 2. He's got 170 and 169 game day squad.
Oh, points. I know it.
Yes,
Caleb Serrell.
Caleb Sarong is my fade of the week. I am not keen on playing him. He has been fantastic the last 2 weeks, particularly. You can pretty much lock in, or maybe not. Oh, last week's going to be interesting if you give Luke Jackson the 3 votes or not. But he's at least going to be getting 5 votes over the last 2 weeks because he's dominated the last fortnight, and particularly last month has been great. But he comes up against St Kilda this week, and we know who's been running some tags over there. That's good old Marcus Winhager. Well, not good old for us. Is absolute pest for fantasy coaches because he's leaving our best players not scoring great. So he kept Marcus Bontempelli the week before to a pretty much his career low score, or like his lowest score since like his first year. So Marcus Bontempelli only scored 60 GameDay Squad points last couple weeks ago, and Nick Dacos last week. Yes, he did still ton up and ended up scoring 127 in GameDay Squad. But the way that Nick Dacos is able to work around the ground and get away from him was fantastic. I think Sarong's more like a Nick Dacos type where he can do that. I just think that Windy will definitely be going to Caleb Sarong. We'll lock him down. And I think that I don't see Freo as the same team as Collingwood, where all the Collingwood players were getting into Windhager around the ground. And it wasn't an easy job for Windy to try and stay with those. Whereas I don't know, Freo might employ those same tactics because they know it will go to Sarong. But if they don't, I think it could be a pretty tough day for Caleb there. So I think that at least that ceiling won't be there this week. He might still be able to ton up in GameDay Squad, but I just don't like the ceiling. And midfield, I do like to go for those ceiling scores. So currently, he is my fade of the week. Let's go through our squads for the round, and we will wrap up the show. I will get the squads up first, and we'll go with Tom's squad first, and then we'll touch on mine shortly after. So we will get that as it comes up on the screen right about now. No, computer's going a bit light. Here we go. Yep, here it is. So this is Tom's squad for starter for the week. So Tom, walk us through your squad and how it's looking like this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Double Saints defenders. Sheasel back into the squad. Haven't had him in for the past couple of weeks, but been loving what I've been seeing from him. Bailey Dale, 107, little disappointing, but just sort of foot off the gas a little bit in the fourth quarter. Just sort of cruised to it. John Noble spoke about Clark and Mills. Big Geordie Dawson, got to get him in there. Dacos is a really good number 2. And for the reasons you said in your fade of the week, I'm starting Andrew Brayshaw because I do think Caleb Sarong is going to get all the attention, which means it's going to open up the door for big Andy B to come in and get a couple more fantasy points. So that's why I'm starting him and not Sarong. Ed Richards against my Swannies. We're going to have a tough time marking someone like him. Noah Anderson against the Ds. I really like the matchup. The midfield for the Demons has been known to leak points throughout this season, and Noah Anderson is going to be one of the higher scoring mids that will benefit from that. It is a little hard because Noah's sometimes fantastic, and then Took's really good, and then Matty Rouse in the mix, and he's a good inside mid. But I think all of them have pretty good upside this round, but I think Noah has the most upside to sort of explode with his goal-kicking ability.
So Noah Anderson, his last 3 games against Melbourne, has gone over 130 GameDay Squad points.
That's exactly what I need to hear, mate.
3.
Fantastic.
So
Adam Chera has really benefited from sort of Carlton's, a lot of injuries and people in and out, and now with Walsh being gone, like he's in that midfield, he's stepped up and he's getting a lot of his hands on the ball. He's getting good marks and big-time tackles as well. There's a massive uptick in tackles that we've seen over the past 5 rounds in particular. So I'm loving what I've been seeing from him, and he's a pretty good start. Cameron TDK, spoke about them. Cozzy Pickett, I think, is going to go nuts, just like I think the midfield for the Demons gives up points. The Suns give up a lot of points to sort of those mid forwards. There's people that rotate in between, and Pickett is one of the best ones in the comp. Jackson's a free. Kennedy and Sam Darcy. How good is it having Big Darcy back in your forward line? Yep. I think he nearly had 100 points at halftime last round, and definitely he took his foot off the gas, but he had 5 goals nonetheless and played fantastic. Jason Horne-Francis, Rankin, and Caleb Daniel will top it off. We spoke about most of those throughout the show. So there we have it. Yep. Starter squad ready to rumble. Let's throw it over to Bales and see what he's rolling out with this round.
Yeah, we like it. That's for sure. So we'll go through My squad, I'm showing my classic squad because this would be what my starter squad would look like if I could put all these players in. But because I don't have enough bronzes and I'm not taking a starter as seriously, I thought I'd chuck up my classic side because you guys will be able to see some of the rarities and stuff I'm going for.
Love
So,
it. Awesome.
in defense, we've got Nasai Wangani, Miller, Jack Sinclair, the duo from St Kilda, along with Jordan Clark, John Noble, and Callum Mills. But I've also gone the North Melbourne duo this week. I've
You've
gone
got the
Harry
double
Sheezel.
duo.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
gone Harry Sheezer, who's playing obviously a bit more of that mid-forward role, but he's pretty much been playing like Nick Martin the last couple of weeks, just roaming around wherever he wants. So I do like him still. And I'll talk about Kai McKercher. I think he's a bit of a pod that I can play in defence this week. So I like him. I don't have Bailey Dale just because I wonder where James Jordan goes. And I think James Jordan will be tagging Bailey Dale because I think a row bottom will go to Ed Richards. So that's sort of what I'm thinking the matchups will be. So that's why I don't have Bailey Dale there. But this was a week where I was like, well, do I just chuck him in? But then I remembered about Colin McKercher and I thought, yeah, I've got to put him in my squad this week. Midfield, obviously, Jordan Dawson, Nick Dacos are both there as well. And I've got some salary cap on those, obviously. I've also got there Noah Anderson with some salary on him. I think he's going to have a good game. Andrew Brayshaw, Marcus Bonampelli as well. I don't think he'll get tagged, so I think he will go fairly well. And I do have Errol Goulden sitting on my bench there. I'm still tossing up where I play Josh Dacos there because I do like him, but I've currently got Errol there. I do think Errol's going to have a good game. Darcy Cameron and Tristan Cherry. I don't have TDK at the moment. I've got Cherry there, but whether I change that to a TDK now that he's solo, obviously I'm thinking about it. I wish I could put some more salary on Darcy Cameron, but I don't have any there. So if I buy one, then maybe that will be where I get it from. Then the forward line, gone for Kennedy, McRae, Jackson, Rankin, Darcy, Caleb Daniel, and I've gone for Big Riley Thilthorpe. The Thil Seeker is on my bench. So that's how I'm looking at with my forward line there. And yeah, that's how the squad's looking. So hopefully can progress in the Classic Cup and have a good week in Classic Contender. And then we'll see what we can do in Starter. Corey there is just saying, just a comment there saying, been considering a pod of maybe Rochelle or Lipinski this week or even Jamie Elliott. Yeah, those names did float around there. I just think that they probably don't have enough ceiling, even in a good matchup, to make sort of really go well. Like Rochelle might ton up, but don't know if he's got that 120, 130 ceiling I'd be looking for. Lipinski is a decent shout, though. Could get a lot of ball. He could be a bit of a real smoky that I probably like Lipinski the most out of those three. Jamie Elliott could still kick 5 goals, but he could also and only score like 80 points, right? So do you have a favourite out of those three that you'd pick as a pod? Because I like Lipinski for the ceiling out of those three.
I actually like Elliott, but he's very dependent on getting at least sort of like 4 goals to score well and perform. Because as you mentioned, if he kicks 1 or 2, it's a very good chance he's only getting 50, 60, 70 fantasy points, which is definitely not what you're looking for. So if he gets hot early, Elliott would be fantastic, but it's a real high risk, high reward for him. Where Lipinski's probably you're looking at because he's probably a little safer, bit bigger, probably can do a little more than Elliott and won't rely on kicking a ton of goals like Jamie would.
Yep. And then final comment here, and we'll wrap up for Max Hansey saying if there weren't season averages, I'd be half tempted to just play 22 non-playing players purely based on the fact that the Classic Cup leaderboard would be 0 versus 2,800, which would be funny. So that would be funny, but don't do that, Max. Try and win. I do want to see how you do go against Monco's Minions, because obviously he's one of those great coaches out there. It'd be good to see how you go up against, and to also test yourself as well. Test yourself up against one of the best coaches going around. See how you go in GameDay Squad, and if you can knock him over, I think pretty much everyone else in the Classic Cup will be happy, because we don't have to go up against Monco's Minions moving forward.
That would praise you as a hero, mate. Seriously, yeah, exactly. You got to do it.
But then again, if Mac goes and beats Monco's Minions, I'm actually going to be concerned about coming up against Max at some point. So that matchup's going to make me concerned regardless of who wins, to be honest, because it's either we're going to have
Max,
a new...
if you're not... Sorry, you go. Finish off, because I've got another point.
Oh, no. You go.
If you're not in the Discord, I'm fairly certain, I'm just going to quickly look it up. He has a bounty on his head. So what he's done is he said, if anyone can knock me out of this competition, I'm going to list up a bounty, and his bounty is a diamond humor cluggage. So essentially, if you win this matchup, not only will you defeat one of the best coaches, but he'll trade you over a diamond humor cluggage for doing so. So we had a little fun in the Discord, and We put some bounties on each other's heads of cards that we like, but we're sort of willing to part with if people win and would enjoy to claim them. But that would be your reward and what you could claim if you did that. So if just beating him alone isn't enough, maybe the Diamond Hugh McCluggage might get you over the line here to lock in and hopefully get that win.
That would be a very, very nice reward. So, Max, good luck to you, mate. Hopefully you can get the job done. And good luck to anyone else out there that's still in the Classic Cup that can, because obviously if you get through, you get an email from GameDay Squad and you get a code. You get some packs each week you progress through. So if you haven't already claimed your, I believe it's a 3-player common pack. If you haven't claimed those in your email, then make sure you do, because you might be lucky enough to snag yourself a good player or 2 or maybe even 3. Yes. And Max said, I've mostly bronzes, but I have $106, which I haven't spent from winning a BBL round. Well, mate, you can either cash the 160 in and try and open some packs, get some good players, or you can save it. But who knows? Maybe you play it this week to try and get some good players. But, mate, you can do with that what you will enjoy.
Best of luck, man.
There. Tom, that'll wrap us up for the round. But as always, where can the people find you across the socials?
Yeah, on X, at Tommy GDS. Everywhere else, GameDay Squad socials. We're always willing to help. The contender competitions kicked off not too long ago. We're heading into round 3. Honestly, if you had a look at the prize pool, it's really geared around, if you set a squad and you make the top 100, you get really good packs as a reward. There isn't any prize money or anything that's thrown into that one because it was made mid-year, but it's really about that progression. So if you are looking at starter, if you are looking at classic and going, you know what, I need more cards, put a contender squad together and try to get some points there, because you'll really reap the benefits of that weekly if you can crack into the top 100 there. I know last round I got a 9-player common and a 3-player common, and I ended up getting a gold Max Holmes from it. And I'm like, beautiful. When he plays, that's now a card I can plug straight into my contender squad. So I'll stop rambling, though. It was a pleasure, mate, to get on with you, Bales. And where can everyone find you and all the great stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, you can find me at BAILSDT across the socials and us at AFL Fantasy Fans. If you also haven't registered for GameDay Squad yet, make sure that you do get in on all the fun, because even if you haven't gone to GameDay Squad as of yet, as Tom said, get involved now, get all the starter packs opened up, and use the promo code BAILSDT at sign up, and you get yourself 3 of the 9-player common packs, valued at $21 for free, just by using the promo code. And then opening those along with your starter packs, get a contender squad together, because you'd be surprised. You put a squad in starter, put a squad in classic, and also in contender. You churn out multiple packs each week, and you can really build your club up in the back part of the year. And then if you want a prize card or bigger prizes next year, you can then go into next year with an established club, plenty of players, go on the transfer market, trade out, get involved in all the action, because it is really, really good fun. So make sure you guys do get involved with that. And I did also get a 9-player rare pack from Contender last week. And I thought, oh, here we go. Maybe a couple of platinums, a couple of diamonds. Got 9 golds. Unbelievable. Got stitched up. Caleb Daniel was really the only player.
That's an amazing contender pack. But yes, it is for a rare pack. Yeah, I understand.
What was it? Closey, Tracy, Max Heath, Fantasia, Zach Guthrie, Caleb Daniel, which is obviously good. Then Maynard, Motlop, and Rowbottom. So not really players we want in our GameDay squads besides Caleb Daniel gold, which is disappointing. But even Caleb Daniel doesn't have a ceiling, so I'm probably not going to use that gold, really, unfortunately. But then again, maybe next year in defense, in contender, if I want to use bronzes gold, there I might be able to use him. But Mike said, any thoughts on Ben Keys? Don't mind him as well. Good matchup. You could have him as a pod. I got him in my starter squad as a bit of a pod there, and he could be someone that you could definitely look at getting. I'd probably rather him over a Shelley, but I think I'd still rather Rankin and still thought from the Crows. But that'll wrap us up. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you do smash a like on the video if you are tuning in live or on the replay. And if you're not, come join us next Wednesday. We'll be live same time, same place. Next week, previewing round 17. Good luck for the final bye week. Good luck in the Classic Cup. You're still involved in that. If not, good luck in all your other comps. And we'll catch you guys next week. See you then. Bye.